Hi, I'm Christina and this is a book review of Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein. So this was published in 2023 and it was shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2023, which is why I wanted to read it. So I didn't really like this book. Let me tell you a little bit more about it and then I'll tell you why I didn't like it. So this story centres around an unnamed woman and she moves from the place of her birth to an unnamed northern country. And she doesn't speak the language in this country. She can speak multiple languages, but when she tries to learn this language, she really struggles. And so she can't make herself understood in this country. So she's moving here because her eldest brother wants her to be a kind of housemaid for him. So she works at a law firm as an audio typist, and his wife and children have recently left him, and he now finds himself in this very large house by himself. And his youngest sister has always kind of been the one that looks after all the other siblings. She kind of waited on them. She did everything for them. So when he asked her to move country and come and live in his house and be basically just someone who works there unpaid, she does. So that's the kind of setup for the story. And then when she gets there, obviously she can't speak the language, she can't make herself understood, and it's very difficult for her to be there. She's very isolated, no one really talks to her, and she's very much by herself a lot of the time. Her brother is a businessman. We don't know what he does his business in, and she doesn't know what he does his business in, but he goes away from the home for long periods of time, leaving her there with just the dog for company. So the reason why I didn't really like it is because not a lot actually happens in this story. So I understand that some very important themes are being covered in this. So we have discrimination, otherness, prejudice, anti-Semitism, but I don't feel like we really explore those themes. We just kind of allude to them and then kind of move on. So I understand the main point of this story, but it didn't really feel particularly impactful for me because I wasn't particularly connected to the characters. I feel like you don't really get too connected to them because everything is so vague and it's very difficult to relate to them when you know kind of so little about them. And yeah, I feel like a lot of the time I was trying to add meaning onto the story. So she definitely alludes to these important themes, but we don't really fully explore them. And it just felt like I was sitting there just kind of piecing it together and trying to fill in the gaps and yeah, trying to add meaning onto the story, which I didn't really enjoy. In terms of the writing style, I wasn't keen on the writing style. So it's very meandering, very kind of rambling. And to be honest, I was just pretty bored most of the way through this story. And then I found the writing style a little bit tedious at times, and without sounding too harsh, I found the writing style very pretentious at times too. It was just the way it was written, it just felt a little bit pretentious, a little bit just tedious, rambling, meandering, boring, and I just kind of wanted it to go somewhere and get somewhere, to be honest. So I actually would have DNF'd this book. If it hadn't have been shortlisted for the Booker Prize, I absolutely would have DNF'd it after about 50 or so pages and just thought, it's not my cup of tea, I'm not enjoying it, I'm not really getting anything from it. But because it was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, I wanted to persevere and keep reading it. And I did think that something was going to happen. I thought this story was building to some kind of climax, and I thought, yeah, stick with it, it's gonna go somewhere good, it's gonna be worth it in the end. But unfortunately for me, by the time it ended, I don't feel like it really went anywhere. It was building, but I feel like it didn't kind of end anywhere, which was a shame. And I just found it quite boring and quite disappointing and underwhelming overall. So while she's there, lots of strange things kind of happen. And there's a dog that has a phantom pregnancy, there's a ewe who dies and her lamb dies, and lots of different things are happening with the animals. So the people there are very kind of suspicious of outsiders, very suspicious of her. And she does some kind of odd things as well that kind of could be related to kind of like witchcraft and occult kind of things. So she'll make kind of little people kind of things out of reeds and leave them on people's houses. And she does things that people find unusual, and they kind of become a little bit scared of her. And I just kind of thought, as well with the time and the place, it was very vague. So in terms of that, it's a very kind of rural place these people live. But the time and place is difficult because obviously we don't know where they are. They're in a northern country that's unnamed, and she's moved from a country that's unnamed, and she is unnamed, and there's so little cementing it in time and place. And I think the other thing that's kind of unusual when you read it, it feels a lot older than it is. It feels kind of like a folklore kind of tale, like it's written maybe, you know, maybe it's set like 100, 200 years ago, and people are kind of suspicious of witchcraft and that kind of vibes. But then it definitely isn't set then, because she makes reference to YouTube, to Microsoft Teams, to the internet in general. And I just, yeah, cementing it in a time and place is difficult, and there's a lot of stuff that's very, very vague, and I think that kind of vagueness affected my enjoyment level as well, because I couldn't feel like I could really hold on to anything. It's like, I don't know her name, and I don't know where she is, and I don't know so many things that it was very difficult to kind of feel rooted in any one place and kind of connected to anything with this story. And yeah, the thing I disliked the most was the writing style. It just wasn't for me. You know, when you read a book and you just don't connect with the way it's written, that's absolutely what happened here. So yeah, I was really quite disappointed by it. And all the kind of comments on the back saying, you know, it's haunting and it's thrilling and it's singular and terrifying. I didn't really kind of feel any of those things. I didn't really feel connected to the characters. And a lot of the time when she was struggling to make herself understood and lots of things were happening around her which were very strange, she doesn't really try to do anything about them. She could have just spoken to her brother and tried to explain things, and then he could have interpreted for her in the language, because he does speak the language. And she could have used Google Translate. She could have tried to make herself be understood more than she did. She's a very kind of unusual kind of central character, and we didn't really build anywhere with it. So yeah, So this is the first book I've read from the Booker Prize in 2023. And yeah, I didn't like it at all. I just kind of found it very underwhelming, very disappointing. And I appreciate that lots of people have absolutely loved this book. And I feel like this is definitely going to be a book that divides opinion. I think you're either going to really love it or you're going to really not like it at all. I don't think there's going to be many people kind of sitting on the fence with this one. It's just, I hope that the people that will love it find it, because I think it can be a special read for some people. But for me, it just didn't work. I just didn't like it. And yeah, there was nothing about it that I enjoyed. I didn't enjoy this reading experience at all. It was a slog to get through. It was very tedious. Every time I had to pick it up, I was like, oh, I just kind of want to get it done and get it read. It's such a short book as well. It's under 200 pages. And yeah, it felt like it took me such a long time to read. I really had to kind of make myself read it and make myself pick it up. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy it. I understand the themes it's trying to explore, and they're really important themes, but I don't feel like it really did a lot with the themes. Like, I think it's the vagueness, everything's alluded to, and I just wanted more from it. So I think, yeah, it's just the type of book that didn't work for me, and that's absolutely fine. It's just not my cup of tea. Now, I would definitely read something by her again, just out of curiosity. So her first novel was called The Coming Bad Days, which was published in 2021. So I might give it a go, but if this is kind of her writing style, I don't think it's really going to work for me. It's just not my cup of tea. I don't really like that type of prose. So yeah. So thank you so much for watching. Please do like the video if you've liked it, and please do subscribe if you'd like to hear more of me talking about books. Now, if you have read this book, I would love to know your comments down below, whether you loved it or hated it. I would just love to hear more people's opinions on this book. All right then, see you in my next one.